Martise will come around the screen, get in the lane, step back jumper on the way. Got it. Offensive rebound, Alex White. Putback is good.
It's center court with Charlie Ernst on 88.3 WLFC.
Martise needs to pick it up, sends it ahead to Ricardo. Ricardo to Terrence Sullivan, who slams it down with one hand.
Join Coach Ernst and the Oilers on Air team as they take a look back at the week that was, discuss what's happening around the conference, and preview the week ahead.
Back over to Alex White. Alex, kick out to Elijah. Nick will launch it from downtown. Nick Rusatz buries it from three.
Now, let's join men's basketball coach Charlie Ernst and the voice of Oiler basketball, Jason Granger.
Hello and welcome to Center Court with Charlie Ernst. I'm Jason Granger. Pleased to be joined by the head coach of Oilers, Coach Charlie Ernst. And Coach, an interesting weekend, a roller coaster ride, you might say. Thursday game, a tough loss at Grand Valley State, lose at the buzzer, and then turn around on Sunday and get a big road win at Ferris State.
You know, that's college basketball in a nutshell, really, and maybe even more specifically, it's GLIAC college basketball. You know, one of the things we talk about all the time is to win this conference, you have to go on the road and find wins against quality opponents. And really, any road win's a good one, but when you can go on the road and beat a contender, those are the kind of wins that come in handy in February. So we almost got both of them done, but then again, we could have lost both. So you look at it both ways, and I'm just thrilled to get a split as it went.
Let's talk about that Thursday night game up in Allendale. It was a game, and I'm sure you think maybe you could have got that one several times, especially in the second half. You're up by 6 points, and it seemed like every time we got up by 4 or 6, it just you needed something to get us to that 9-point lead or that 10-point lead, and just couldn't get there.
We couldn't, and we got some quality shots, probably just as good as shots or better than what we got at Ferris State, and the shots at Ferris went in. But in terms of that Grand Valley game, I think it's an interesting. We had a 6-point lead with 5:48 to play, and felt like we were in great position. But I think a combination of things happened. Obviously, we had missed shots. That's number one. But I think in addition to that, we had a couple key turnovers in there, especially between the 5-minute mark and the 3-minute mark, where we didn't even get shots up. And we're too good a shooting team to go empty in terms of shots attempted on possessions, especially key possessions on the road. And it came back to haunt us because when you got a 4-point lead or a 6-point lead, if you can stretch that back to 6, stretch that to 8, it starts to change the strategy of your opponent, and our opponent never had to change their strategy late. And so hopefully the next time, and of course we were in that position just a couple of days later, and I thought we handled it a little better.
A couple positives came out of that Grand Valley State game. I thought that maybe would go unnoticed was how the game finished from the standpoint of being able to execute. There is a tie ball game. You got the ball underneath your own bucket. You got a great look from Taryn. It just didn't go in. And then even at the end of the game, with two seconds left, you're able to get a really good shot to tie the game. Just didn't go down. I think those are things that at some point down the road we're going to have those opportunities again, and maybe those shots go down.
Well, and that's a situation. Dan Shardo, our assistant coach, my assistant coach, he does a really good job with our offense, and we've been working with our guys in those late game situations in practice, and we have a couple plays specifically for those situations. In fact, we also have some things when we have to go the length of the floor and we only have one timeout. So different situations, we have different things called, and to be honest, there was a couple stoppages late there in the game for them to review the time on the clock. And it probably, most people would think that it benefited us to get organized, but to be honest, we were totally organized. We had the right players on the court. Our players knew exactly what we were going to run and exactly how much time was on the clock. And it actually allowed Grand Valley to rethink their defensive lineup and to put the right guys on the floor. And when you don't have time to do that, it's a lot of things to think about if the flow of the game continues. And so they put a 6'10" guy on the ball. He was not in the game. They checked him in the game at that point, and that helped to stymie that last play. I think if they don't sub him in, we have a great chance to tie that game and send it into overtime. But we called some good plays, and the shots just didn't go in.
Yeah, well, it ends up being a 61-58 loss at Grand Valley State. And, sometimes you lose those games early in the season, and what it does is it allows you to kind of, reevaluate what you're doing as far as a number of things. And maybe that's a positive that came out of it, because you fast forward to Sunday's game, and you change the rotation just slightly. You change a few things that you're doing, put a little more focus on your upperclassmen, and you come away with a big win.
I think two things that we decided to do going into the Ferris State game. Number one, lean on our upperclassmen more, and that's let's face it, everyone could have done more in the game against Grand Valley. I would never pin any loss or any win or give credit to one singular person during any win, and I feel the same way about a loss. But I learned a long time ago in this sport, or in any sport, that you have to lean on your veterans when you go on the road against very difficult opponents. To expect your younger players to be the ones that lead the way is really unrealistic. So we went in with a rotation of playing our upperclassmen more, shortening our bench a little, and then I decided to use Ricardo as our backup point guard in that game. And, every game calls for a little different situation. Their point guard is a very good point guard with good size. We felt like we needed defensive presence, extra rebounding, because they're a tremendous rebounding team. And I think fortunately for us, I thought it worked out pretty well.
Well, this is really a great college basketball game, and a game that I think both teams played very well. And Oilers come away with the win 81-77. But let's talk about the first half, because first half you struggled shooting the ball just 38%. Luckily, Ferris did as well. It was kind of a defensive grinder in that first half, and you probably felt fortunate to have a 2-point lead.
Well, and we're okay with that, especially on the road. We're kind of a team that maybe when we play at home, we're comfortable playing fast. But when we go on the road, especially the second game in a road trip, we're okay playing that style. And we didn't want to get into a running game with Ferris State. We wanted to keep them in front of us. They hadn't been a very good three-point shooting team. I think they were either last or second to last in our conference. And they're such a good rebounding team that if they're constantly beating you off the dribble to the rim, I don't like our chances. So we decided to play a style. Now, we did press a little bit, but we decided more so to cover gaps, contain the ball, keep it in front of us, and try to rebound as best as we could. And I thought for the most part, our guys really focused in, and really that's how we got our last stop. Just going back to how we wanted to guard them, from the outset. And I think it give our guys a lot of credit. They stuck with the game plan. They stuck with what we talked about for the previous 2 days. And trusted one another even when we fell behind by 7 there in the second half.
One of these unbelievable games, 19 lead changes in this game. Score was tied 17 times. It went back and forth multiple times. You talked about getting down 7. I thought that was the key moment in the game, and you talked in the pregame about how your juniors and seniors kind of need to take a step forward, need to grow up a little bit. And I certainly thought that's what happened there. Down 7, nobody lost their cool. You called timeout, came out, and went on I believe it was a 5 or 6 point run to get it back to where it was manageable.
Yeah, it was. I didn't realize there were 19 lead changes in that game. What's interesting is there were 18 against Grand Valley. So here we're coming off of a weekend where there were 37 lead changes in 2 games. That's almost unheard of. I think that tells you the quality of teams, the quality of games that fans saw in both of those nights. So, yeah, I give that's the thing I'm most proud of, Jason, is the resiliency that our team showed. Because when you get down 7, in fact, I think they were at the free throw line, or maybe with an opportunity, either with a free throw or a possession to go up 9. And either we got a stop or they missed a free throw and we got the defensive rebound. We came down. I don't remember who scored on that possession, but I do know Ricardo made a very difficult drive to the bucket, finish in there. We had a lot of guys make plays, but the biggest thing is we got good shots. We didn't panic. We didn't come down and shoot quick. We got stops on defense. Austin had a couple steals in there, which was big. He had a very good defensive game, especially when we needed it the most. And so I'm proud that we got it done on both ends of the court when we needed to. We didn't come down and try to answer being down 7 with quick shots, bad shots. We played together, and fortunately, when you're coaching those things, they're easier to drive home when you're successful.
Truly a team win. Everyone that checked in the ball game contributed in some way. You had 22 assists on 31 made field goals. That's pretty good. And then the 8 turnovers compared to 17 turnovers for Ferris State. I think if you go into the game, maybe you thought that number might be reversed with how they pressure the ball, and it came out that way, and that's probably why we got the win.
Yep, and what's ironic is the turnover bugaboo has been there for us the last couple games, and we actually protected the ball well in the preseason, protected the ball very well against Dayton, and it just has kind of creeped up here lately, and really not against teams that were pressuring us all that hard. A lot of our turnovers were just unforced. And before the game, Coach Chardo and I were talking about maybe some things we could do this week in practice differently to get a better handle on that, to get our guys to understand valuing the basketball and how important getting shots up are in this game. And sure enough, our guys answered the call against maybe one of the best pressure teams we've played all year next to Fairmont with only 8 turnovers. So we may have to rethink those thoughts in practice. That I think our guys are getting the message, and hopefully it's not a big problem for us going forward.
And Terrence Sullivan really turned his play around on Sunday. I think everyone kind of expected that to happen. The 27 points is what it is. I mean, that's a great performance. But I thought he had a number of areas. He had a block, a couple steals, some assists, some big rebounds, especially on the defensive end late in that ball game.
Well, I thought that's where his energy showed the most. On the offensive glass, you get 4 offensive rebounds against these guys because he got a couple of those going up and over people. Those weren't ones that just sort of fell into his lap. He had some big time offensive rebounds to keep some possessions going, and but some of the shots he made were the kind of shots that really validate being a preseason all-conference player, because there's only a select number of players in this conference that can make the tough shots under the pressure moments that he made in that game. And, and I think another one is another guy on our team, Martise. So we had, again, our veteran players, we had them stepping up big when we needed them. And what a game by Taryn. He wanted the ball late. He delivered for this team, and I'm proud of him.
And points in the paint, another area that I think maybe is a surprising stat when you think about how Ferris State plays, with how they want to drive the basketball. You add the fact that they have a 6'10" kid, and Zach Hankins is just a beast down low. And really when you factor all those in, I think Hankins gets 14 rebounds, but you held him to 14 points. You get 32 points in the paint. That's pretty good when you have that type of shot blocking presence.
He's one of the premier shot blockers that I've seen in this league since Callistus Ezekwu, that played at Grand Valley back in the 2006 to the 2005 to 2008 time period. And he was a difference maker for Grand Valley. And Zach Hankins is a similar presence for Ferris State right now. They're able to pressure the ball. They're able to deny entries. They're able to use their athleticism to apply more pressure than most people, knowing that they've got a tremendous shot blocker at the rim. That makes everything tough. So to get 32 points in the paint, that was a real battle to find those. And those were some offensive rebounds. Those were some drives. Those were some post touches. Just a variety of ways. But and give our guys credit. We kept taking it in there, and we found ways to score. And you got to be able to have some balance, even against a team like Ferris State, because that's exactly what they want you to do, is just start launching threes. But our guys stuck with it, and we did get some finishes at the rim, which helped us get some space when we did make some threes.
We can't finish talking about this game until we talk about the end, because there's so many areas that went into this win, and we talked about it being a total team win. We talk about Terrence Sullivan's 27, but you don't win the game if Ricardo Smith doesn't go to the line when Austin goes down with an injury, get a free throw. You don't win the game if your sophomore Cat Singleton that you have to put in because Austin can't play, you get him in the ball game, he gets a steal, makes 2 foul shots. You had some guys, maybe some unsung guys, step up and deliver.
And maybe that's what, we had the huge shot by Martise, to send it into overtime, which was a great shot under tremendous defense, really. And then you talked about Taryn. But I do think that maybe the big takeaway in this game was the play of some of those unsung guys. Ketwan, who hasn't played a lot, and he's a key guy on this team because he keeps getting better, and he's going to be a very good player that plays a lot more minutes as his career goes. But I think his patience as a player, he's given us good quality minutes when he gets on the floor. But that's what I'm talking about earlier in this conversation here. We talked all week or the last 3 days about we got to be in gaps. They're going to try to beat us off the dribble. And he had a great read, came off of his guy, got a dig in a gap on a dribble drive. The ball kind of popped up in the air. He grabbed it, got fouled. And at that point, he still has to make the free throws to get it to a 3-point game. If he only makes one, we can't foul, and they're going to get a shot to win it or tie it. And they, if he makes them both, now we can foul, and make sure they don't hit a three at the buzzer. And that's exactly what he did. He calmly stepped up to the line and knocked them both in. And then I subbed in. I subbed because at that point you don't want your opponent to get a running start out of a made free throw. So I had to sub, and I subbed in Nick, I think, for Martise. And, it wasn't necessarily the ideal sub from a matchup standpoint, but we needed to sub someone. So I went with Nick. And I give Nick a lot of credit because before those free throws, I had told them if Cap makes one, here's what we're doing. If he makes two, if he makes none, here's what we're doing. And I said if he makes them both, then we want to foul before they get to half court. And so putting Nick in, he was not in the game, hadn't played the whole second half, but he was engaged in the huddle enough to hear what I said. And we've rehearsed those situations a little bit in practice. And fouled really at the perfect time. They only had 1.5 seconds to go, and that made that a lot easier to manage the end of the game when you only have 1.5 left. So it worked out very well, and there was a lot of guys that contributed.
Well, it was an outstanding win on the road in overtime. A lot of heart showed by the Oilers. 81-77, they get the win, get the split on the trip. When we come back on Center Court, we'll talk a little bit more about that split, what it means in the GLIAC, and who the Oilers have next on 88.3 WLFC.
Only 0.5% of all high school student athletes play basketball in college, but all 100% of them become adults. That's why playing basketball on their high school team is so important. High school athletes learn life lessons that help them grow up, lessons that can't be taught in the classroom and often aren't taught at home. This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Check out my new time machine.
Does it work?
Hit the button.
Hey, it's Napoleon.
Oui. Check out the future.
Hey, you have a nice house. Why don't I?
You didn't save any money, buddy.
If only there was a way I could go back in time and fix that.
Yeah.
Save something for the future. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Hey, Nick Cannon here. So we all know we've got a lot of talent in America, but unfortunately, there's something else we've got way too much of: childhood hunger. 17 million kids struggle with it in this country. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks gather surplus food to give hope to hungry kids and their families. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Martise come around the screen, get in the lane, step back jumper on the way, got it.
Join us Thursday night when the Oiler basketball teams return home to take on the Timberwolves from Northwood University.
Stolen away by Boner. Great pass over to Horseman. Horseman up and in for two.
Jason Granger will have all the action from the Croy Center. Women's pregame at 5:15, tip-off at 5:30, men's game immediately following.
Sullivan from way downtown buries it!
This is your home for Oiler basketball, 88.3 WLFC.
Welcome back to Center Court with Charlie Ernst. And Coach, we finished up that last break, just wrapping up the Ferris State game, but wanted to kind of touch a little bit more because I think sometimes as a fan, you look out and you just watch the score, you watch why what's going on the floor. You're not thinking about the strategy and what it really takes going into it, and really that last 4.5 seconds, you're up by 3, but that could have went a number of different ways. You were up 1 when Cat went to the line. There's a lot of strategy that goes into those end of the moment games.
The difference between winning and losing is very small, and we feel like as a staff sometimes we don't work enough at the end of games. You have so many other things you want to get done in practice, but we had rehearsed that. We've rehearsed that a couple times over the years, and that is we were out of timeouts. We used our last timeout when Cat went to the line. So at that point, it's okay. There's going to be 3 scenarios that play out here. If he misses the first one, because it was a 1-on-1, we're only going to be up 1, and here's what we want to do. We're going to switch everything, basically. We got to contain the ball because they're going to try to get to the rim and draw a foul. So we had to have the right guys on the floor with the right matchups, understanding who's probably going to have the ball in their hands for them. So there's some discipline at that point. If he makes the first one and misses the second, we're going to be up 2. Okay, they're probably going to try the same thing, but a 3, they might go for a 3, and a 3 can beat us. How do we want to defend that? And then finally, if he makes them both, we want to foul before they get to half court and before they shoot, because you don't want to foul a shooter. So just a lot of strategy. It puts a lot on the players. Hopefully they've seen it and done it before in practice so that they have confidence in what's going on. And the players executed well. And, of course, Cap made those decisions a lot easier because he went to the line and made them both.
Well, and then it's a trust factor from you as a coach because you're in the huddle. You're talking to the 5 guys that are into the game. The guy that you end up having to sub in, Nick Rusatz, is standing behind you. You got to just trust that he's in tune to what's going on because he couldn't have done it any better, as you said. And if you sub someone in, they don't know what's going on. All of a sudden you got chaos out there, and who knows how the game ends.
If Nick were a freshman or a sophomore, sometimes I wouldn't say you expect it, but you could have understood it, But when Cap made the first one, I turned around and looked at our bench. And I didn't want to sub then, so I waited until right as the ref handed him the ball, and I turned around and kind of looked over our bench, and I grabbed Nick, because I needed to sub because I wanted to stop the clock or stop the progression of the game if he made the second one so that we had time to get our defense set. If you don't sub there and the shot goes in, they're going to inbound it quick and throw it in and race it down the floor. So the sub, it wasn't the ideal sub, but you subbed to stop the clock. And I subbed in Nick, and there wasn't time to discuss the strategy we discussed in the timeout, but he obviously was listening, and he's a junior. Bennett seen those situations and did a very nice job of executing the right foul at the right time.
Yeah, certainly helped us get that 81-77 win over Ferris State. And it was a big win, Coach, because we talk about this a lot on these trips, especially in North play when you're going up there, is getting those splits and getting your record to 1-1. Not that it was the end of the world if you were 0-2 right now, but certainly you want to be 1-1 to start the year, going in knowing that you got to play 6 more North Division teams.
Yeah, the North Division is very good again. And we know what's ahead of us, both home and away. Nothing's going to come easy. We look back at the Grand Valley game and feel like there's one maybe we should have won. Maybe they stole it. Maybe the opposite is true in this game. I'm sure they're looking at it and saying we have a 7-point lead with 6 minutes to play, and we let them get it to overtime and beat us. So they're probably sitting in Big Rapids having the same conversations we had in Findlay on Friday. So that's GLIAC basketball right there, and you just got to find ways, and you can't let one loss, dictate what kind of team you're going to be throughout the season. And hopefully this win is one in which we can ride some momentum and maybe see how far we can carry this momentum.
Well, you were able to come home Thursday night against Northwood, Saturday against Lake Superior State, and really 2 different teams. And I know you haven't had a chance to really look at both those teams too much to begin with. It's just early in the week. But, you look at Northwood, this is a team that lost a lot of players off of last year's team, a lot of new faces when you look at them. They do have some newcomers back, but also a team that maybe has some confidence. They able to beat Tiffin and then really had Ashland down, an opportunity to win and lose at the buzzer.
Well, this is a team that I know coming into the season, Jeff Reckweg, their head coach, knew that he lost a bunch of talent off that team, a lot of seniors. They maybe graduated as much as any team in the whole league. And, so he had some big shoes to fill coming into this year. They struggled early, had some tough losses with a young team. That happens. I think they played better in their trip to Puerto Rico. They didn't come out of there with wins. But they played better, and then they carried that into 2 home games to start the season, and really had a chance to go 2-0. Ended up losing a close game, I think, by 1 point to Ashland, a game in which they led almost the entire game. So they got some big, strong kids. We watched them on video in our preparations for Cedarville because Cedarville had played them earlier this year, and so we know a little bit about what to expect. But certainly having them at home, being a young team, this is a game we have to come out. This is a game we need to win.
And I think another learning opportunity for your team, because I keep coming back to this. Got a lot of juniors and seniors on this team, but again, some of these guys are in new roles. I guess the learning opportunity is okay. You went on the road, you got a big win. Maybe you got one you shouldn't have. Now you're at home where you should win, and you need to win. And there's another type of attitude that comes to the floor that you got to bring to get that done.
I think that's really the key. And this is a little bit different week since our game at Ferris got pushed to Sunday. Now Monday becomes the off day, and we only have 2 days of preparation. So sometimes you like that extra day of preparation, not because you need on-the-floor adjustments and work in certain things, but to get your players' minds right, and to get them hungry and re-energized again. But that's the nature of the way it goes, and so we will do that. But I do agree that getting ourselves hungry and edgy again coming into these games, just in the same way that we were when we went to Ferris State, though, that's what you need to do. Consistency is the key to winning a conference championship, and you can't have highs and lows and ups and downs and be all over the place in terms of your effort and your execution. That's got to be consistent. If it is, we're going to win more than we lose this year.
I think the key when you look at Northwood, they do have some guys that return. Matt Crowell averages about 11 points per game. Spitzley's back. They had a nice freshman last year in Zach Allred. He's back. But they're a team that likes to shoot the three. They're shooting about 36%. And anytime you have a team that's capable of shooting the three, they're scary because they can come to the gym and knock down some shots.
Yeah, and they traditionally like to spread you out a little bit. Now they had some tremendous quickness last year. The quickest player in the conference, Maurice Jones. So their spread offense was extremely effective last year. This year, they're maybe not quite as quick, but they probably still want to do the same thing, spread you out, but maybe utilize the three-point shot to spread your defense out. And they got a couple horses inside that kind of patrol the paint for them, and so it's a combination of players that are going to be good, and probably they're a team that maybe in some ways we're catching at a good time, meaning we're catching them early in the season. Because clearly they are playing much better basketball now than what they were even 3 weeks ago.
And then the Saturday tilt will be against Lake Superior State. And I think Lake Superior State is a little bit like Ferris State from this standpoint. This is a team we've struggled a little bit in the last couple of years. Ferris State, before we beat them on Sunday, had got us, I believe it was 2 times in a row. Lake State got us last year. And they bring back maybe the best point guard in the entire conference, who's just a junior, Kim J. Williams. Now, he's a different type of point guard. He's tossing it up 21 times a game. I mean, he loves to shoot, and he's averaging 24 points, leading the GLIAC in scoring. But then they do have other guys around him that can get it done too.
They do, and probably the job that Steve Headinga is doing at Lake Superior State is as good a job as I've seen anyone do in the last 10 years in terms of what he's done with that program. This is a school and a program that, let's be honest, they struggle in a lot of sports in the GLIAC. But men's basketball is not one of them, and I give him the credit for that. He's changed the culture there. They kind of play with the swag, and to be honest, they've handled us the last couple times. Now we have them here in Findlay this year, and they are playing fast. They are playing a lot of guards, and they are trying to take advantage of that in the way that they play. They are cranking up a lot of points, maybe the highest scoring team in our conference offensively. So it'll be a real challenge. But certainly everything they do starts with their point guard, and he's quick. He's aggressive on defense. He also has, for a guy that takes 21 shots, I think he's got to be at or near the top in assists per game as well. So he's a willing distributor as well. So we have to figure out a way to contain him, and that's where it starts. And if we can do that, we're going to give ourselves a much better chance of winning this game.
And maybe another way to get the edge, so to speak, for your players as well is the fact that they don't have to play on Thursday. When Malone leaves the conference, Lake doesn't play on Thursday. You guys play on Thursday. So even though we're at home, Findlay a little bit of a disadvantage there coming in on Saturday.
Yeah, that's I guess I'll talk to Urban Meyer about how he does that. The Buckeyes had to play both Wisconsin and Penn State back-to-back on days when they were coming off of bye weeks. I think as coaches, you sometimes can make a big deal about that. And rightfully so with the schedule makers, but we'll worry about complaining about that maybe after the game. We have to get a win on Thursday, and to be honest, I'm not at all worried about getting our guys cranked up to play Lake Superior State because they know what happened there last year, and we got embarrassed. And they remember that well. I'm sure if nothing else, they remember me in the locker room after the game. I was extremely disappointed, and I'm sure they were too. And in some ways, maybe it changed our season. But give credit to Lake State because they can do that to you. And I don't, even though they have a bye on Thursday, I think our guys will be ready to play on Saturday.
All right, good to be back at home, Coach. 2 games in Croy, and it's always good to be in front of our home fans. Good luck this week.
All right, thank you.
That's head coach Charlie Ernst. That's going to wrap up Center Court here on WLFC. I want to remind you, Thursday's game, the women's game is first. That'll be a 5:30 start. We'll have pregame at 5:15. We'll remind you, as always, to follow us on Twitter at Oilers On Air. For Charlie Ernst, I'm Jason Granger. You're listening to Center Court. This is 88.3 WLFC.
Martise can come around the screen, get in the lane, step back jumper on the way. Got it. Offensive rebound, Alex White. Putback is good.
Thank you for listening to Center Court with Charlie Ernst.
Martise needs to pick it up, sends it ahead to Ricardo. Ricardo to Terrence Sullivan, who slams it down with one hand.
Tune in every Tuesday night during the season for your connection to Coach Ernst and Oiler men's basketball.
Back over to Alex White. Alex, kick out to Elijah. Nick will launch it from downtown. Nick Rusatz buries it from 3.
This is your home for Oiler men's basketball. 88.3 WLFC.